The chair of European Movement, Mike Galsworthy, was on Times Radio with Bill Cash, the godfather of Brexit, who has recently retired as an MP and will no longer be giving his Brexitness to Parliament after 40 years of doing so. Anyway, I have put together some clips of Mike Galsworthy's contributions because they are very empowering, and I haven't put much of Bill Cash's because they were mostly nonsensical. However, if you do want to watch the entire thing, I have put a link in the text below to the actual full video on the Times Radio channel. And make sure that you watch until the end of this video to catch up with what happened with the cattle here today. And comment below, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe.
What are your views?
Well, I think that what we just listened to is entirely removed from the lived experiences of the working population here. I mean, there have been analyses of Brexit that strip out Ukraine and strip out COVID, and they found that the impact from Brexit was twice the size of COVID. But instead of talking about these high-level factors, let's talk about people's day-to-day experience. When they go and try and travel or work in the EU, they're much more limited than they were before. And this is because of Brexit, not because of any other factor. Our businesses trying to trade with Europe, with their partners that they traded before, have more paperwork on top of them. They can cost up the hours and the costs of that paperwork. That isn't Ukraine. That isn't COVID. No, Bill, you talked for a long time, so I'm going to finish. These are all very tangible, real experiences that people feel eating into their lives, and they come from Brexit. So on the point of sovereignty, because a lot of Brexiteers have now said, OK, so it hasn't helped immigration so far. We can't prove that it's helped anything in the economy. Certainly hasn't helped your freedom of movement or musicians trying to travel, but sovereignty. We've got our sovereignty. What does sovereignty mean? That's the key question for me. And could you give me just 30 seconds to let you know?
30 seconds. I've got so many messages coming through.
OK. Sovereignty is the power to make decisions about your own life or your own country. When we were in the EU, we invested some of our sovereignty in people's ability to travel and work in other countries, in our businesses to trade freely. With Brexit, we saw sovereignty shrinkage. We pulled that all back to a government for them to make decisions, and they haven't used it to do anything useful at all. It's been a waste of sovereignty, whereas EU membership was a much better investment.
I mean, there are some political scientists, Mike, who say it is possibly too early to get the full extent of Brexit because of these other factors as well. I mean, I have seen that from a number of, including people like Jonathan, Potes, who, is not an ardent Brexiteer or anything. Would you give any concession to that argument that actually maybe Kemi Badenoch today is saying we're not really going to know. It's going to take like 10 or 20 years to see the full effect. Is there any merit in that argument?
There is, but from what angle are you looking at it? Do you think we should be giving more time in order to see benefits, and they can't even tell us what those benefits are going to be? Or do you think we need more time in order to see how bad it is? There's a principle when you're doing clinical studies, which is if you're running a clinical study and you're seeing that the drug is not giving you the effect that you want, but there are significant side effects causing damage, then you pull the plug on it. And I think many people think that with Brexit, we're at a stage where we can see the damage. There isn't promise of good stuff coming through, so we should pull the plug on it. But I'd like to say just one more thing, which is I know data, Bill, because I am a scientist and I've done big data for a long time, and I know how you can present different angles on data.
Sam's messaged in saying Brexit anniversary. He's very angry, Bill. He says Bill Cash, Farage and their ilk should be brought up for fraud charges. They've helped to ruin the lives of most people in this country. They promised us the moon. Hang on, Bill, let me just finish the message. They promised us the moon and unicorns and instead delivered the same trade deals we'd had before and a few additional ones on disastrous terms for our own home industry and agriculture. culture. They've given us extra inflation, low growth, and made us poorer. Brexit's a disaster. We need to rejoin the EU and regain freedoms. Someone else has messaged in saying this whole sovereignty thing is so pathetic. A cursory glance at the barriers in place for business and public to the EU. Just even trying to go on holiday or taking your pets is now a nightmare. I'll never forgive or forget. Someone else has said, Bill, you don't speak to me. You won by a tiny majority that could be comfortably reversed now. You've got to be willfully blind to not see it at this stage. So, Bill, you get a lot. Honestly, my listeners are very upset about it. What would you say to some of the messages you've heard in? Because people are very upset. And also, when you look at some of the polls, a lot of people want to rejoin.
I would say you read out a lot of Remainers' messages.
There haven't been any. Honestly, if you're a Brexiteer, please message in. Do please message in. Mike, I just want to move the conversation on slightly. Quite a few people are messaging in saying no political parties are talking about it, and shouldn't Labour be saying more about Brexit? Keir Starmer was a Remainer. What do you think Labour will do if they win?
Oh, now that's a big question. To quickly address what Bill just said...
Very briefly, because we've only got a few minutes.
...about the big data stuff, that's great. And in the EU, they've actually got jail sentences for polluters now, big polluting companies. Hey, we should get together. That's how the whole thing is meant to work. But on Labour, yes, they should be talking more about Brexit. We all know why they don't at the moment.
And they want
They
growth.
don't want to spook the horses.
Growth.
But yeah, getting into the next parliament, their responsibilities change. Right now, Keir Starmer's responsibility is to win a general election. And he will. He knows the data. He knows the polls. He knows what people are saying their priorities are for the constituencies that he wants to target. Fine. But should he get into power, his responsibilities change dramatically the very next day. And his responsibilities are to British citizens, British businesses, and the whole country. And our businesses will be crying out for getting rid of that Brexit red tape and getting back in. And our citizens will be crying out to free up opportunities to be working in Europe, travelling in Europe more freely, and so forth and so on. So things are going to change when he gets in power, for sure, because of the business and public pressure for him to do.
Today, these cattle were really naughty and escaped. They broke down the fence. And they know they've been naughty. We had to chase them back into the field where they are meant to be. And we had to fix the fence that they trampled all over to escape. Very naughty, and they knew they'd been naughty, which is why they're all sat huddled looking at us as we fixed the fence.